awesome, amazing conference. If you are, can we just clap for a second for them? I've already been inspired already. This is my third year, obviously my first one in person, but I'm super excited. We've already heard Dr. Walker and others already. So this has been amazing. I'm excited to hear Tracy Green as well. So really quick, my name is Kevin Overton, had not two last names hyphenated. This is the Faces of ACEs. This is from living overwhelmed to learning from living overwhelmed to learning to how to overcome adversity. Also want to welcome our virtual audience as well. Our sponsor for this session is the Austin Independent School District. So thank you all for helping us make this conference possible. Housekeeping, we will put some of these, the QR codes on some of the rows to kind of help get you guys to scan it during the conference discreetly and not as a distraction to help us catch up. Make sure you do both of those. There is one for a survey and then one for the CEUs as well. So make sure you look at the header to see which one you're scanning essentially. And really, I'm going to get out of the way and let Tracy Green take it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? We're good? Okay. So it takes me a second to warm up, to get going. We're going to talk a little bit about this in the presentation, because once I get rolling, I go fast, so you might have to slow me down or ask me to repeat myself, and that's okay. I do ask that if you can, it's okay if you have a question, but it helps me if I can answer them at the end, so that I don't lose my train of thought. And I'll explain that a little bit more to you in the presentation. So this has been a phenomenal experience. And some of you may have heard me say that I've been coming since 2015. It's actually 2014 was my first conference here. And it amazes me how every time, even virtually the last couple of years, there's so much that you're still learning. You know, the process of learning should continue on, our entire lives. And so I'm very excited about this presentation. It's some new information that's been coming. I was kind of kicking around the bucket a little bit about it being so late in the day because like the earlier presentation, no comparison, but the earlier presentation on ACEs had like 70 people in it. And I know toward the end of the day, people have responsibilities they have to get to. And I just want everybody to have this information. And if you missed the one earlier this morning, I think everything is being recorded, so you'll be able to catch it, because this kind of builds on that one, and that was not planned. That presentation really broke down what ACEs is, adverse childhood experiences, and we're going to run through so what that impact looks like in adulthood, and how we can change that. And as mentioned earlier, we're going to do a case study, and the case study is me. So the first thing I need is a volunteer, and that volunteer is going to be a scribe. And it's only on one slide that I need a scribe, but I will need somebody who has pretty decent handwriting and can spell. That would not be you, Diane. to come and scribe for us, because I want this to be interactive. So is there anybody who can volunteer? And I'll tell you when you have to come up. You don't have to come up right now. Thank you, Vicki. Appreciate you, Ms. Vicki Coffey. So this presentation is the face of ACEs, from overwhelming to overcoming. And I love the different depictions because you never know what a person with ACEs looks like. Actually, ACEs, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold on. So this is what we're about to, these are the objectives that we're going to reiterate the findings from the study of ACEs from the mid-'80s and beyond, share statistics and updated information for today's clientele, dissect a case study of ACEs and aging, and look at research moving forward on this topic and its implications for the future, because it's always important that we are moving it forward. Some of the words to note that you're going to hear during this is allostatic load and overload, physiological stress, resilience, hypermetabolism, chronic stress or toxic stress, which are not the same thing, and then childhood trauma questionnaire. So as explained earlier, and I don't know, many of you may have done the ACEs quiz. There was a poll on Whova about it. And originally, ACEs centered around these 10 topics. And they're broken up into 3 categories: abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. However, ACEs is being expanded to include living in foster care, bullying, community violence, neighborhood safety, and racism. And since ACEs talks about trauma, I mean, what greater trauma is there than having to see a Black man or any person begging for their life when 5 people are beating them to a pulp? I can't even watch it. After the George Floyd, and you know, I realized that I kept watching that George Floyd video with that thinking of, I want the outcome to change. You know, it's not going to change, but you keep hoping that it's going to change. And so when it came this time, I just knew that I couldn't look at it. But so there are all kinds of forms of violence. Not that they didn't have hangings back then or anything, but they didn't have social media. They didn't have it. It was in the dark. And now police are required to wear those little cameras on them. So it's being captured. And then it's being put on TV. And so we're getting to see it. And all of those types of things that it's not like it's new. It's just being captured now. But back to the original ACEs, abuse, household dysfunction, and neglect. Those were the characteristics that were originally studied. And this study was first done by Dr. Vincent Felitti and his associates. And actually, it was him by himself, and then it was him and a partner, and then they added other people as well that helped bring this out. So adverse childhood experiences are stressful and or traumatic experiences associated with an increased lifetime risk of negative health outcomes. And it lists the things, you know, here that happen. The higher your risk assessment, the earlier your death. So on the original quiz, which is found easily by Googling ACEs quiz, there are many reputable sites that will let you take the quiz. It's real quick, real easy. And it's 1 to 10 questions. And the higher your number is, the more the proposed negative effect on you will be. So we're going to connect some dots. This is something that I really love. And so we're talking about from ACEs to aging. So from in utero all the way to old age, how we're impacted. And so we're going to look at four different 5 systems of the body that's most affected by ACEs. The cardiovascular, which is the heart, the metabolic, which is mostly oh Lordy, I can't remember that one. The body's ability to process. Neuroendocrine, which is your cells. That was pretty easy. Did y'all see that? And the immune system. And that has to do with just just the flow throughout your whole body. So it's all connected, but I'm going to show you how in just a second. And then finally, the central nervous system, which is the brain and the brain stem. Okay. So we're going to look at how ACEs impacts those. So one of the coolest things that I learned in this is about allostatic load and overload. And so what that means is somebody's frightened you and, you get scared, but then you come back. I mean, you immediately have your heart racing, your adrenaline going, you're ready to figure out if I need to run or fight or whatever it is I need to do. But then you're able to just come back to homeostasis, just kind of calm yourself down. Well, somebody with allostatic overload does not calm down. Their body does not, it cannot. It's at a heightened sense of hypervigilance all the time. You think about that. What does that do to a person's body? What does it do to their heart? What does it do to their nervous system, their immune system, just to their mental health? When you're living in hypervigilance all the time, when you're ready to run at a moment's notice. And so these depictions show you where the fly lives for 1 week or less. Pesky things, pesky. I don't know why God ever created them, but hey, who am I? He's God, he know what he's doing, right? So the fly, how big is a fly? Teeny tiny. So we're going to compare that to a shrew. Anybody in here know how big a shrew is? Looks like a little rat, doesn't it? Do you know they fit on your fingertip? I mean, he wouldn't fit on my fingertip, but one of y'all might let him fit on y'all's fingertip. I don't care how small he is, he ain't coming on mine. So there's the fly, there's the shrew, there's the elephant, and the whale. How big is an elephant? Huge. And a whale, even bigger. And then there's the baby. So let's go back a little bit. So the fly, what is, in your estimation, what is his capacity for allostatic load or overload? I mean, come on, if we just slap, we could kill him. I don't touch things. Only things I touch alive are people and animals, dogs, and sometimes not even them. But you could swat a fly and he's dead in an instant. You could, with a little bit more force, you could swat a shrew or stomp on him at the very least, and he's dead, right? His allostatic overload doesn't take much. That's what I'm trying to get you at too. Okay, it's not going to take much for him to hit overload, right? Now, if I were to swat an elephant, is he going to feel that? He's not even going to know I'm there. Or a whale. I mean, really? I'm going to clap my hand or slap him on the side. Will he even know? I mean, we're just pretending because, of course, I'd have to be in the ocean with all those other creepy critters and that ain't happening. But you know what I'm saying? The smaller you are, the less allostatic load you can handle and manage, right? So when you now think of this little one in the belly, this is what's so profound about this, why they say from age 0 to 17, because believe it or not, your ACEs starts even in utero. And a young man made a comment today about trauma actually starts at birth. For the mother, it's the birth pains. And for the baby, it's the transition. but actually it starts even sooner, right? So studies have been found that say however much stress she's under, and I forgot, I have a little pointer thingy on here. I forgot how to use it, it's all right. But however much stress she's under, that baby is already feeling it. Can you believe that? That baby is under stress, even in utero. So let's think about that for a moment. You've got a pregnant teenager who is freaked out because, let's be honest, it was an unplanned pregnancy. And so she's feeling, the fear. That baby begins to feel that too, and the rejection. That's why it's important what we speak. There is life and death in the power of the tongue. That's why, it's important that we say unplanned pregnancy as opposed to unwanted baby. I used to work in a pregnancy center. But yeah, studies have now shown that they will test these children at different stages, and they have stress loads, and it came from when the mother was pregnant with them. What an amazing thing, this information age. I mean, I know, we have a lot of things that we talk about with social media, that aren't so good, but this information age also helps us to do better. When we know better, we do better. So we're gonna take this back to the case study, okay, of me. Now, this is not actually my picture. I just thought she was a cutie and I liked her. Yeah. So I'm being very transparent here. And I do that and I'm comfortable doing that, but it's still difficult. So just roll with me here for a second, okay? So Tracy is an elementary school age child who lives with a biological mother and a stepfather. Tracy's biological father died when he was 32 years old, and Tracy's mom was just ending her first trimester of pregnancy, hundreds of miles away from family. My mom lived in New York and she was from Louisiana. Upon birth, mom and my older sibling moved back to the South, living with my grandparents, who were extremely poor. They had 17 kids in a 3-room house. Let me leave that alone. Just how poor, and okay, can I just say it? There were no birth controls at the time. So my young mother was in courts to find a man, any man that would take care of her and 2 children. And so I have 12 siblings up here. It's because my grandmother lost 5, but there were 17. So the new husband immediately embraced the kids as his own, even wanted to change their names, which no, when we were old enough to say, we said no. However, the home became riddled with domestic violence, alcoholism, sexual and emotional mental abuse, neglect, and incarcerations of a parent. Within an 8-year span, the 4 of us became the 9 of us. So it became crowded really quickly. And there was never enough food, space, time, resources for our poor family, because mom couldn't go out to work with all those kids. I mean, you'd be paying it all in babysitting, and all she had was a high school education anyway. So she stayed home with us. I'm going to skip that first one for a moment. So I developed the behavior of sleepwalking. I was threatened with corporal punishment. This was seen as a willingness to let the perpetrator in the house at night, which was not the case. Police became involved in our situation, but the perpetrator went to jail and then came back home to continue what he was doing. During this is probably the hardest. During my elementary and junior years, I was teased and mocked as the girl whose daddy raped her. That's just what the label was put on me, and followed me. Whew. Despite that, I was part of the Spark program, which later changed to the Talented and Gifted. I think they said I was smart. Never felt smart. The only books in our home was an old set of encyclopedias, probably from, I was going to say my mom's childhood, but they couldn't afford books either. There were no luxuries. I was thinking as Dr. Walker shared Disney World, I was like, only Disney World I ever saw was, watching Mickey Mouse, M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. That was as close as we got. And we probably saw that on a black and white. I did maintain high scores in high school until I got pregnant at the age of 16. I mean, I still graduated with high scores, but I was pregnant, having a baby. And then I got married at the age of 18. My mom wouldn't allow me to get married before my 18th birthday, even though my boyfriend wanted to marry me. And I didn't know that was connected to money, that she wouldn't allow me to get married. However, I'm going to tell y'all a little bit of the end of the story. I'm still married to that guy today. At the end of this year, we celebrate 40 years. Woohoo! He's my sweetheart. So what we're going to talk about for a minute is missed opportunities of combating ACEs in my childhood. So look, let's run back through that just for a minute. Anybody see any did anybody else think somebody should have asked me what was going on in my world? Do y'all see any places that between here and here? Talk to me here. Talk to me here. Absolutely. We were very involved in church as well. I mean, we looked the part. And in my community, I mentioned, let me see. Well, first we moved back with my maternal grandparents. So even when we did get our own house, they were never far. But it was not talked about. Everybody knew what was going on because the first time mom called the police, the first time she caught him, she called the police. And I remember being really proud because I've heard the stories of my uncles jumping a train to get to me. Kind of took me back to Maya Angelou's story a little bit. But then it was never talked about again. And what happened when he came back home? And what about the neighbors? Because if you look on Hoover, you'll see there's an article that I wrote for the Hog Foundation called Triggered by the Lights, Red, White, and Blue. And it's talking about how the starkness of those red and blue lights on the black night. And I was traumatized by the people coming to help me. I mean, it's not their fault. I mean, it just happened. But you hear it. What I'm getting at is that, so all my community knew. That's why in school, everybody knew and talked about me as the girl whose daddy raped her. But did anybody's parents, any teachers ever ask me what was going on? Nobody. Never. Mum's the word. Now, would I have told them? Probably not. And I'll explain that a little bit later. Remind me. to tell you it connects to my diagnosis, but I didn't even get that opportunity. And the teachers would hear the kids teasing me. I mean, lots of them wouldn't play with me because you're the girl whose daddy raped her. You're talking about. So then when we go back to, these communities, y'all, the first time the police came to my house, they took me to the hospital. Another trauma, because nobody talked to me. They just examined me in the most vulnerable place, and nobody talked to me. So I've got this big white light. That's where the white comes from. Okay. Nobody. So what are we going to do differently? What do we need to do differently? What have we got to do differently? God, dog, we got to talk about it. We've got to be engaged community members. And you know what? It's uncomfortable for all of us. I see that mama in the grocery store whack her kid, and the kid starts screaming, and then she's telling them not to cry. And I want to say something, and I don't. I don't know what to say, but I want to say something. But first of all, I don't want her to whack me, because these days and times, you don't know. So what we've got to do is figure out some kind of game plan. We cannot let it keep going on. So here's some questions for you to think about. What does community mean to you? And who is in your community? Is there any Bible story that makes anybody think about? The Good Samaritan. Yeah. Absolutely. Do you notice signs of trouble around you? Are you aware? One of the biggest known problems we're having in this society is sex trafficking. But are we aware of the signs around us? Even, it's not even called domestic violence, it's called partner violence, because boyfriends are beating up girlfriends. They ain't even waiting for the ring anymore. And maybe too, vice versa, but you know what the predominance is. What would you like done for you if that were you in that situation? What would you like somebody to speak or to communicate on your behalf? I want you to really think about that. Where have you been failed in your past or present? And how would you like that to look differently? We've got to think about these things. Would you know who to contact if you did see signs of trouble? And then what would you say? We've got to have this conversation. And what does engagement look like to you? What does having community provide to those in trouble? I've got the first answer, and I'm very excited to say it. Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. Whew. I cannot tell y'all. So I come from this dysfunctional family that you've just seen. And I don't know if I even mentioned it. Yeah, I said my family grew from 4 to 9. So I'm one of 7. The youngest of us, who would be 45 this year, died 4 years ago. Just the traumas. She actually died from 6 brain aneurysms. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're going back to that cardiovascular situation, with ACEs. This stuff ain't no joke, man. Whew, whew. We've got to do better. And so how can we take a little bit of CTAAFSC with us home tomorrow? on tomorrow and make it a daily thing, so that when we do come together, it is a family reunion, but not because I came, but because I brought one. There she is over there. No. Y'all have no idea. I've been posting so many pictures on Facebook. If you're on my Facebook, you have seen so much already about, because I'm building it, and I've been building it in my communities, but it's a little bit slow to get, certain folk to move. But we're getting there. We're getting there. So we're going to talk about resilience for a minute. Because resilience is not something that you're born with. It's something that you learn. Okay? So it's the ability to overcome serious hardships. The single most common factor for children who develop resilience is what? That's all it takes, man. One relationship. And it could be anybody. Here's the cool thing about it, is that all it takes is one school teacher to say, hey, I see you're going through something. I just want you to know I'm here. If you ever want to talk about it, or if you just need some space to yourself, I can make that happen, because I'm your teacher and I love you. I'm grandma. I know things kind of crazy at home, but when you come to grandma, you're safe. I just want you to know that. I'm gonna be there. I'm grandpa. I'm Uncle John, not the one that's gonna molest you, but the one that's gonna protect you. One, that's all it takes. So this is where I need my scribe, Vicki. And there's a marker right there. And this is where everybody gets to, we're going to talk about practical ways of building resilience. So we need a recipe. We're writing a recipe today for resilience, okay? And now I've broken this down into 3 categories. So to help you, this one is on just practical ways of resilience. For me, it's baking. No comment about how much chocolate I eat. But then we're going to talk about personal resilience, just for you, just you. And then we're going to talk about professional, what we can do corporately. So as we start now, I want you to throw out ideas, and Vicki's going to write them down as far as practical ways to build resilience. And now you can do any of these. You can be a part of sharing the utensil needed, how many people it's going to serve. It's a recipe, time that it will take to complete it. And so under utensils, that's the tools and the equipment and the skills. How many it will serve is because you're building this for you to take home with you, right? So we know that it only takes you helping one person, but how many people can you think of that you can help, whether it's one person or 20, and then the time it will take to complete this, whether it's establishing boundaries, whether it's taking you a week or a month, but something for you to be working toward. It's establishing those boundaries. And then, of course, the most important factor are the ingredients. Why am I doing this? So I'm asking you right now, I know, do we need to get up and shake and move around a little bit? I know it's the end of the day and I'm sorry, but they fit in as much as they could, and they did it in this time frame. And so we're going to work with that. Okay. And we're going to thank them for it. All right. So I need volunteers. Vicki's waiting. Okay.
I'm sorry. We must talk into the mic for the.
Yeah, I forgot. You want to give it to her?
To acknowledge the problem.
Okay. Where does that go on there? Utensils. Okay.
Acknowledge your feelings.
Acknowledge your feelings. Very good. Where does that go, everybody? Okay.
Find somebody to celebrate you. and your
Yeah.
progress. I think that will go as an ingredient.
She said, find somebody to celebrate you. Yeah.
Having compassion for yourself and others
Yes.
and knowledge.
Having compassion for yourself and others and knowledge. Okay. Go ahead.
Over here.
She gave me an ingredient.
Having compassion for self
Oh,
and others.
I'm gonna take an ingredient off of hers. Find somebody you can trust.
Yes. Did y'all get that? Find somebody you can trust. We'll be right to you.
Be willing.
Willing to
Be available.
Oh, that's awesome. Be willing to be available.
Communication, great listening skills.
Communication for
Great listening and communication skills.
yes, absolutely. Let me say one word about that. Do you know in college, I have a master's degree in human services counseling. You know, that's a whole class, listening skills. That just blows my mind that it takes a whole semester to learn how to listen properly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would say rest and relaxation.
Yes. Rest and relaxation. Anybody else? Did I miss somebody?
Confidence. Keep your confidence.
Yes, absolutely.
Here. Positive affirmations.
Scripture.
Amen. Scripture.
Girl, you spoke it.
To not go off your understanding, but allow God to lead the way.
Would you repeat that for me?
To not go off your understanding, but allow God to lead the way and allow him to understand the situation because he got you.
Girl. Proverbs.
One more.
Proverbs 3.
I was just gonna say prayer.
Along with what they're saying.
Love. Unconditional love.
Yes. We working you.
Meet up with a supportive friend for lunch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. We're working, Vicky. We're going to stop there because there's a few more things that I want to share with you, but I love this. Look, guys, we have the answers because we are the answers, right? That's beautiful. So these are practical ways of building resilience. Will you read those?
The recipes for building resilience. First is acknowledge the problem. There's a utensil and acknowledge the feelings. And then ingredients is find someone to celebrate you. Have self-compassion and compassion for others. Find someone you can trust. Be willing to be available. Great listening and communication skills. Rest and relaxation. Confidence. Positive affirmation and scriptures. Allow God to lead the way. Prayer. Unconditional love and supportive friends.
How beautiful, how absolutely beautiful. Look at us. So here are some ways that I put for ways to build resilience personally. And so one of the things that I love the most and my husband and I do all the time is laughing more. We laugh with each other. We don't laugh at each other. Well, sometimes I do laugh at him, but it's all right. Amelia Hart did good like a medicine. Finding what makes you happy, like a hobby or a specific place or something to do. And I'm going to sneak and tell you this, that one of my favorite things to do is at nighttime, turn off the TV, pull the covers over my head and read my phone. I know you're not supposed to be reading your phone at night, but it's all good. I feel like I'm in a fort. I feel like I'm a kid and I'm in a fort and I'm doing my thing. Right? Decluttering your life. That's a big one. Whether it's your environment, a stressful job, or a toxic relationship. Decluttering your life. Exercise, a nice walk in your neighborhood, a park, raking leaves, or taking a bike ride. Now, let me tell y'all one thing about that. Every time somebody says exercise, I feel guilty. I have a hip issue and I'm just, just keeping it real. That old hip of mine, man, it don't want to cooperate. But there are ways around it. Like walking is not, I can't do, but riding my bicycle is something that I can do. I don't know what the difference is, but just finding something that you enjoy, relaxing with a good book, a magazine, a puzzle, or a puzzle book, which is something during the pandemic that I picked up, was doing hide a word in the crossword puzzle. Volunteer for an organization or church or your local library or community center. I know, so I don't work outside the home, at a typical business because I get triggered easily. But I am the busiest volunteer I know, well, besides Diane, with NAMI. So find something that you can give your time to that's building you and building others at the same time. So as far as professional ways to help foster resilience in communities, and I heard some of these same things earlier this morning. Strengthen the family's financial stability. Ain't no shame in needing, what's it? Let me see. It's not called food stamps anymore. SNAP. You need them? Go get them. I wish I could, because there's so many things that this world has made stigma of. And we hear it on the news, we hear it everywhere, but everybody ain't no crook. People just need this stuff. There ain't no shame in that. I mean, I wish we could get it. And it ain't because my husband makes so much money. It's, I'm not working, there's not a lot of money coming in. And so, we do without some things when, as we have to, but come on, ain't no shame in that. Giving people paid time off as they need it. I heard what you said. You asked for time off. Will you share that real briefly? Oh, my bad.
So the company that I work for, I am a senior for Texas children, Texas kids, Medicaid. And I lost my mom. It'll be 2 years in April. In between that, my mom died in April, and about 3-4 months later, my son was passed out in the store. He was having a seizure, he on drugs. And so just dealing with it all. And my mom made me over her estate, and I have half sisters by my dad. So none of them are speaking to me. And so just dealing with the weight of it all, I put in for a short-term disability so I could be at home. And I was told that I didn't fit the criteria.
Yeah, we got to do better, with legislation. NAMI was supposed to have Capital Day, February 1st, but we all had this ice in Texas, or most of us. But we've got to be plugged in and listening to what laws are being passed and be part of who's pushing them. It's important. I'm passionate about that. Having flexible and consistent work schedules, promote social norms that protect against violence. Good God Almighty, all of the football coaches that protect boys from having to take responsibility for raping a girl because they're a good star player. Yeah, we've got to change this, guys. Positive parenting practices, prevention, like it says, efforts involving boys and men, and then help kids have a good start by having programs. And I'm not just talking about programs like learning their A, B's, and C's. I'm talking about having conversations with their feelings. How you feeling and why you feeling that way? I mean, because did anybody stop that 6-year-old who shot that teacher but had threatened it and had caused trouble before? 6 years old. I don't even know where to get a gun from. Lord have mercy. So more are to teach healthy relationship skills. We're taking all these tests, and I've got to get tests about how we rank in the state and how we rank in the country, but we're losing our kids to violence. We're losing our kids to drugs. We're losing our kids to mental health because it's not being talked about, or they're going through the jail pipeline. It is about connecting youth with activities and caring adults. Can I say here, safe adults? Because everybody who act like they care ain't safe. I met a man this past week that I'm collaborating with on something in DC, and he was sharing, he has a book. His name is Jerome Lighthouse or Lightfoot, something light. I'm sorry. But he has a book called Groomed, and it's about how perpetrators groom kids. We need to know what that process is like. Okay, and then intervene to less immediate and long-term harm. Intervene to lessen immediate and long-term harm. What would it have taken for somebody just to tell me, I see you? Yikes. What would that have done for me? I put this on here, emotional attainment, because it helps having kids and young adults having something to work toward, helps them to overcome their ACEs, the impact of ACEs on their lives. But I also read a study, or a couple of studies in the same thing, that talks about some of the smartest kids in school, some of the most obedient, some of the quietest ones have the greatest trauma, except they internalize theirs. So you got the ones that's out there, with the negative behaviors, but you've got people like me who they're telling me I'm smart and I don't believe them. And, in special programs, because I was internalizing it all. So we cannot miss these young people. And so I just love this one. This is me and Jerome. We've changed colors over the years. No, I love this, because this is what we want to get to. But we can't get to it if we're dealing with cardiovascular disease and respiratory disease and neuroendocrine issues, and cancers and all of these things. So let me take you here. So now, this is what I speak over myself. Beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So I am about my business as I'm about my Father's business, as I speak wholeness to my soul and I don't deny what's going on. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we talked about these 5 categories: cardiovascular, metabolic, neuroendocrine, immune, and central nervous system. So under cardiovascular, when I was about 40, they discovered I have a patent foramen ovale, which is a hole in my heart. My mama said they lying. She didn't have a hole before. I don't know what to tell you about that, but and then a family history of heart disease. My biological father dropped dead of a heart attack at the age of 32. And then 3 years ago, this April, my mom was found dead in her bed from heart disease. Metabolic, I have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes 2, and a high BMI. But we're just gonna gloss right on over that. That chocolate might have something to do with that. The neuroendocrine, high cortisol levels, high stress levels, which reminds me, I forgot to tell you the difference between toxic stress and chronic stress. Chronic stress is you have a lot of stress in your life, but you're managing. Toxic stress is you have a lot of stress in your life and you're not managing. So your body is taking it. Your body is processing it. You're not walking around telling people I got toxic stress. I feel kind of toxic today. But your body is feeling it. And that's what's bringing about all these diseases that we're having. That's why we have to work on this. When I first started talking about my sexual abuse as an adult, my grandmother called me and yelled at me and slammed the phone in my face. My mother told all my siblings I was crazy and I was lying. And I don't have a relationship with some of them to this day because of it. So I'm not supposed to get it out. I'm supposed to keep it in. I'm going to die so they don't feel uncomfortable. Y'all cool with that? Because I'm not. I wasn't doing it to tell on anybody or, it had nothing to do with anybody else. It was about me and what I needed. Is that okay? Is it okay for me to take care of me for a minute? My stepdad sure didn't take care of me. He was taking care of his needs. My mom didn't take care of me because she let him back in the house to take care of her needs. And I mean, collectively, groceries, rent, stuff like that. But is it okay today for me to take care of my needs? The same is true for each of you. So this immune thing, that's that whole hip thing. I have a degenerative disc in my back and some other stuff going on. And then multiple allergies. I think I'm allergic to the air. God, dog. Allergies to everything. It's crazy. It really is, y'all. It's intense. It's intense. When I shower every day, I use 3 different soaps because what might cause me an allergic reaction in one area, but I need it in another area. So I have to switch. Seriously, this is an everyday thing. This stuff is crazy. All from ACEs. Well, okay, not all, but you know what I'm saying. And then there's the central nervous system. So I live with dissociative identity disorder. For some of you who don't know, that's multiple personalities. That's what it used to be called. And I know, don't freak out. You don't have to run. I know, I saw Sybil too in the 70s. I don't watch movies about dissociative identity disorder because it's crazy out there. The only one I did watch that was very a good representation was Frankie and Alice. It was done several years ago with Halle Berry. And I thought it was done very tastefully. And it was a friend who had seen it said, I think this is okay for you to watch. Otherwise, nah. I heard, like on Split, they have supernatural powers and all that crap. Nah. The depression, the insomnia, and the anxiety, I still live with that. I didn't even know what anxiety was until I was telling my social worker at one point that I had gone to church and they turned off the lights or they darkened it and they had the music booming and I ended up having to leave. It triggered me. And it took me like 3 hours to calm down. And he was like, that's not normal. I thought that was normal. I mean, but no, it's not. So I have actually the first presentation I ever did was here at the conference in 2014, and it was on dissociative identity disorder. Because I want to dispel the first of all, we don't see many Black people. I mean, Halle Berry, like I said, did a good job of it, but anything you know is Sybil, The Three Faces of Eve. I heard there's a new one out, and don't look online because it scared the heck out of me online. Ugh. So how do we want to advance the conversation of eliminating and reducing, the ACEs? So here's some things that I think that need to be talked about is how do we help parents of multiple children to get involved with their kids at school? You know, my mama couldn't, I'd have been ashamed if she did. Drag all them babies with snotty nose and wet diapers to my school if I wouldn't be ashamed enough. So how do we help parents so that they can be involved with their children? You know, how do we support single parents who have to choose between work or getting involved? We need to keep the conversation. We need to talk about this stuff. You know, it's not just say no, y'all. After say no, there's got to be, you know, bullet points of this is how we're going to say no, and this is what we're going to do. So how do we break the barriers of stigma concerning substance abuse, domestic violence to be able to help? I remember one day coming outside, my mom and dad were having a physical altercation in the house, and I stepped outside because, you know, I didn't want to be in there. And my friends were listening around the door. I mean, talk about humiliation. We need to change the conversation, even with kids, about that's nothing to giggle about. We need to rally in our communities and in our neighborhoods and in our families. And what barriers do we face as helpers in community? Like I mentioned earlier, there's fear, retribution, being triggered. I saw a man, I drove up to a gas station one time and a man was beating a woman, and I immediately was triggered and like almost crashed my car just from not going to help, just triggered. And when I get triggered, I dissociate. So what happens? I now have a 5-year-old behind the wheel of the car. 5-year-olds don't drive. They don't have a driver's license. And I'm triggered. Huh? Right. And you know, the craziest thing about it is, so somebody comes to help me or the police show up or whatever. And I'm 5 because I've been triggered. So I can't speak for myself. Now they're looking at this 50 plus woman, but that's what they see, but that's not who I am. What happens then? Y'all, it's happened to me more times than I like to admit. So we need to have conversations where we can talk about and have the spaces. Again, we want to take CTAAFSC back to our communities where we can do this, yes, yearly, but also daily or weekly or monthly in our communities. It's important that we don't just wait for the planning committee to organize something for us. we have got to be committed in our own communities. They can't go to all of our communities. So if they could, I'd take them to mine first, right? So it's about advancing the conversation on eliminating and reducing ACEs. We talked a little bit about the barriers that we face, you know, being fear or not knowing what to say or being triggered. So start thinking, because that may be something we can do as a community, is start talking about, so what do we say? I'm writing some curriculum right now for, I've got several projects going. And I don't know if they're all Tracy, so they might not all come through the pipeline, but like, I'm that person that reads 4 books at a time because this person likes this book, this person, that's true story, true story. Or I'm sorry, I'm gonna get back to it, but I have to tell y'all this. One of the problems that we have in our house, it's just Jerome and I in the house, we have adult children and grandchildren, but I buy groceries and then it just sits there or goes bad. And Jerome's such a sweetheart. Oh, he's my sweetheart. And he is. Diana's met my husband several times. And just the other day, he was like, hey, you got this chocolate pudding in here. Should I give it away? Should I take it to work and put it? And I was like, somebody's gonna come back and want their chocolate pudding. Just leave it there. That's real talk for us, you know? Somebody's gonna want that. Somebody bought that. It's gonna want it. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to go off on that. Anyway, this is my final comment to you, because I said that I was back in the beginning when we were talking about me, the case study. I had a godmother. Praise God for a godmother. And she would have me come over to her house and spend the night just to give me a break, just to get me from out where I could sleep without fear. And that's the first place I knew that I was a sleepwalker. God bless you. Because my mom had been saying it, and she had been saying, you know, my mom told me one time, 3 strikes, you're out. I'll never forget that. If I come up, wake up in the middle of the night one more time, and your bedroom door is open and unlocked, I'm going to whip you. 3 strikes, you're out. Because I would sleepwalk and open the doors. But I didn't know I was. When I knew it was the truth was when my godmother told me. She said, you opened the front door in the middle of the night. I don't remember a thing. She said, you opened the front door and you just leave it open and then you went back to bed. Just, you know, so I know it was true. And she didn't threaten me. She didn't judge me. She was like, I guess I'll have to watch better, you know? And so now there are things you can do for sleepwalkers, like put a bell on the door so people know, you know, or set the alarm. And so the alarm will go off if the door opens and things like that. But yeah, so I'm gonna stop there. Am I good? Really? Well, I guess we can talk about my cookie habit. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Does that include the question and answer period? So let them start asking questions.
Yes.
Confused.
We have 10 minutes left in the session, so for Q&A.
Okay.
So-
My bad. So yes, we will take questions. Now, he'll have to bring the mic to you if you have a question.
Come on, Lindsay.
Sorry, I don't know if you answered this, but is there answers to these questions or
Oh,
some
no, no, no.
pathway at some point? Like, I would like to answer this or know how to help when there's an opportunity.
No. So here's your assignment.
Okay.
Next year, you put in a proposal on how to do this.
Okay.
That's how they do it in college. Right, right. Anybody else?
I was gonna say maybe host a panel answering those questions.
That's cool. Thank you.
Do you still sleepwalk?
Do I still sleepwalk? No, 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 no. It's a right. That's what you have to ask. I don't sleepwalk, but my husband tells me amazing things that I don't remember. He's like, you were holding a conversation, or you said such and such, or you don't remember talking to me and saying, "Dude, la la la," and I'm like, dude, I have no idea, but I know he's telling me the truth. He has no reason to lie about it. So yeah, it's transition and it's not what it used to be. So I've been diagnosed for 30 years now, about 30 years now. And those first 10 years were hellified because I didn't have any validation. Only thing I knew was Sybil, and that meant I was crazy. And my biological family, my family of origin, were so dysfunctional. My mom was so dysfunctional. Oh my gosh. It was horrible. It was horrible. And then I did have hospitalizations. I tried to commit suicide 4 times. And there was nobody like me in there. There was one time there was a nurse in one hospital that I was at, and she pulled me over to the side, this Black nurse, and she's like, girl, what you doing here? You know, we don't come to these places. And the truth is, whether it was that time or another time, I was put in forcibly by my husband because he couldn't manage the kids, go to work, and keep me from killing myself. So he did what he knew to do, the only thing he could do. And I never would have gotten help if my life wasn't chaotic. Yes. How did what make me feel?
Have any resentments, or how did that make you feel?
I was afraid. I was desperately begging him, please don't. Anybody saw the movie The Son? Whew, it's about suicide. It's a heavy movie, but it's a great movie. And it was a similar kind of situation where, yeah, he had to put me in. And no, I have no resentment. He saved my life.
Go here.
Broken. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
How do we become aware of such trauma to approach in a welcoming manner? Like I heard you was talking about your sleepwalking and how your mother told you that you had three strikes and you were out.
Mhm.
My question is, I guess I'm answering it in a way, because of your environment, because of the things of what was around you and who was around you, you didn't have anyone to approach you in such a way. But going back to my original question, how do we become aware as adults to recognize these signs and these increments of what children do? How do we approach that?
So are you talking about for children that you know or just in general?
In both, children that you know, and then a child or a teenager, someone that you just may come across, and you see, like how you were saying, the quiet ones, the head down ones, those are the ones with the most trauma. So how do you know? Like, yeah, you can ask them, how you doing today? Or, you can ask them how you feeling today, but to me, that's not a barrier break, or that's not a icebreaker, because it's only the surface.
So it's done in relationship, because it's the people that you're in relationship with that you notice the differences in. Yeah, a perfect stranger, I would not be able to ascertain if they were in crisis or if they're just having a bad day.
Looking over you, I don't know if you took the bus to school, but like a bus driver
Yeah.
or, you know,
Well, it's kind of like what I said before. Even if you can just say to that person, whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here. You know, just something like that.
Mhm. Thank you.
Mhm. Yes, I see you. Let them know.
I just have a question about the movie that you mentioned because I'm interested in watching it. Was it The Sun, like SUN or SON?
SON. And I want you to know it's a heavy movie. So have some space to kind of process that. But it's an excellent movie.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I know that many of you don't know her husband, Jerome, but I just wanted to share that for as long as I've known Tracy, and I can imagine his heart when he had to, when she had to be hospitalized. But if Jerome was not working today, he'd be sitting right up there on that front row supporting her. But when I say that he cares for her, it really is the epitome of Black love, you know, just watching them two. So like the picture she shown, even though they were little more light skinned, you know, that really is, you know, who they are. But you know, when I tell you support, and I mean, even support when when it's something that she doesn't want to, something that she doesn't want to do, you know, but to protect her, that's what he is all about, you know. So I just wanted to share that.
This guy cries at Hallmark movies. So,
We have time
yeah.
for 2 more questions.
Okay,
I gotta
okay.
get right here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Does this platform help you as far as uplifting you, being that you've went through all you've went through?
That's a very good question. So here's the thing. Yes, it very much uplifts me, but I also have to talk to the team inside and tell them because it feels like sharing secrets. And so I have to make sure I'm in that space. And so, you know, even before talking today, I had to say, hey, we're going to do this, but it's about helping people. It's not about shaming us or telling our secrets so much as it is about wanting other people to have the information to make better choices. So there's that dichotomy there where there's the good side and then there's the shaky side.
My question is, as a spouse, how do you show support to someone that suffers from AIDS?
That suffers from
AIDS, from ACE.
Oh, ACEs. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm trying to get into Jerome's head right now. Not that Jerome doesn't have his own ACEs. Okay. So that's the answer, is that we mirror that for each other. Yeah. So she's asked, how do you support a spouse? We mirror that for each other, because I know Diane's only seen the good side of Jerome, but I've seen the other side of Jerome.
I've seen that side too.
Okay. So
Hold
we
up, I
mirror
just
that.
didn't want
We
to tell all your
support each
business.
other. Okay.
This is the last thing that I really am going to say. Just 2 things real quick. She's the one that also, you know, I echo what she says about Central Texas African American Family Support Conference, because she was my introduction to it. And I tell you, I wouldn't change it for nothing in the world. For me, this is the greatest conference, and I came away from El Paso, you know, just to be here. But I wanted to say one thing. She might choke me on this, but I believe her about what she's saying about the team that she says she talks to. When she was on the way driving down here, I wanted to make sure that she had made it yet, and I got here first. And when we got to the hotel, because I said, well, I was asking where was she at, and she said, well, we're on the way. But she already told me that Jerome wasn't coming, you know. So when she got to the hotel, I said, well, who's with you? And she said, just me. I said, well, you said we. So I really believe that she does. I think she started talking to the team prior to. But thank you, Tracy. I love you.
Any closing remarks before we get out?
I love you too, Diane. Actually, I said it in here. Yeah, it's kind of subtle to catch, and I don't do it on purpose, but I'll refer to us or we. Yeah. So yeah, it's a part of who I am. And it's much better than it has been. I want you to know that. I'm not nearly where I was 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. First of all, one of my hospitalizations was for a month, and it's trauma unit that teaches you how to be grounded. And it's a learning process continually, always. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of flow over. And I was sharing with the young lady who finished the session right before me. I said, I'm sorry I missed your session. I've been here since this morning. And if I had not stepped out to take a break, y'all would have got a way clearer picture of what DID is like, because I have to step back for a minute. My brain gets tired. And I mean, I'm sure everybody's brain gets tired, but when mine gets tired, other people come out and talk. And there's no violence here, never has been. It's mostly all children or teenagers kind of thing, but we're good. We're good. Oh, well,
Who called the police? And I want to say I'm sorry for what you went through, and I thank you for your transparency. And there's my last question. I want to call the police.
My mom did. My mom did. Oh yeah, because it started when I was a baby. And so she's the one who called, but it was the community told her, don't ever do that again. Don't you bring them white folk in our business. Yeah, so she never did again. And thank you. Thank you.
Well, last one. No, we're good. We're over. Why don't you go over and have talk? Thank you, Tracy Green. Make sure you do your CEU, scan at the door, scan at the door. Thank you.
Please do the surveys, guys.